Hi, I'm Michael Janich, and welcome to the Martial Blade Concepts video series. Martial Blade Concepts, or MBC, is a system of personal defense that I developed that focuses on the use of edge weapons. It's drawn from the critical elements and fundamental principles of the Filipino martial arts, elements of the Indonesian martial arts, and other edge weapon systems, but it really focuses on modern self-defense. Now, the logic of the MBC system is described in detail in the first video of this series, Martial Blade Concepts, the enhanced version. If you haven't seen that video, or if it's been a while since you've seen that video, I strongly suggest that you go back and review the information in that video before you attempt anything you see here or in future volumes of this series. The reason for that is that MBC teaches in a very specific fashion, in a very specific order of information. We have a very progressive way to present information that allows you to develop a specific skill, master that skill, then learn additional skills on top of that, building on that foundation, and at the same time, deepening your understanding of what you already know. When I first started teaching the system that is now known as MBC back in the late 1990s, I taught using a very traditional methodology. We would typically present flow drills first, reflex training drills that you would practice with a partner, and those drills would teach you specific patterns of motion and sequences of angles. Once you learn those patterns, once you were comfortable with them, what we do is we would draw technique from them and teach you the combative applications. That was an efficient method of teaching, but it really wasn't the best method. What I found once I started teaching, especially in a seminar format and teaching armed professionals, folks like law enforcement personnel, military personnel, and professional security personnel, what I realized is that their need for combative skills was much more immediate. They didn't have time to learn a drill and then learn the application later on. They needed to know the application and understand the application right up front. So what I did was I changed the order of the presentation. When I did, the results we got were spectacular. People understood what was going on. They appreciated the drills more, and their ability to learn and retain information increased dramatically. So the MBC system, as far as its teaching efficiency and the order in which we presented information, has been refined over more than 10 years. Now, if you're familiar with any of the other materials I've done on edge weapon tactics, specifically the Fighting Folders series, to put it simply, this video series is designed to make that series obsolete. It's not that the information in that series is bad, it's just that it represents what is now an outdated training methodology. By presenting the information in the current system so that you're learning applications first and then reinforcing that with the training drills, I find you're going to be able to learn better, you're going to be able to retain the information a whole lot better, and you're going to achieve a higher skill level in a much shorter period of time. So with all that stuff said, let's go ahead and jump into the training. When you look at the MBC system, especially if you go back to the beginning, back to volume 1, we talked about critical skills, the go-to movements. We explained that conceptually you had 4 defensive responses, 4 zones of defense, 16 techniques. But as we looked at the system more and more, you got deeper and deeper into it, what you started to realize is there's a lot more there. The great thing about MBC, you can stop anywhere along the way that you want. If you feel that you've gotten enough for your needs, fine, no problem. What I've done is I've examined the Filipino martial arts, is I've examined the needs that we have to be able to be fully prepared for personal defense. I've included other things. Is Hubud one of the 4 defensive responses? No, but it's a really important skill to have as far as I'm concerned, and it plays into MBC very importantly, so we include it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go through angle by angle, take a look at angle 1, and show you everything that we've got based on the state of the art of MBC as we produce this video. It's going to go beyond the 4 defensive responses. It's going to review everything that we've got here. We'll add a few other points into it as we go. But again, the whole idea is not that you have to fight like me. You just have to fight well. So you can take a look at all this and say, you know what, I'm going to stick with these critical skills, or I may add this one, do whatever. It's all modular. You figure out what is important to you, what works for you, and you make it part of your training. Okay? So let's go back and take a look at this stuff. Trainer, awesome. First, we'll take a look at a pass for an angle 1. So Vince attacks, boom, I get out of the way, pass. He's followed through, I cut and check, step in, driving 30 degrees, making sure that he's not coming back. I step off to create that power and also to clear my leg. I now comma cut and walk through. So when we put that all together, there's a pass for an angle 1. The cruzada is basically taking that pass, amping that up, and adding the live hand into it. So when Vince attacks, I Crosata that through. That forces him to overextend, gives me the opportunity to cut that tricep, step in and drive. Again, I step off. That mobility kill is, of course, our real go-to move. That's going to take him out of the fight. Now, just by way of review here, we've looked at the idea of following up on that tricep, but we've also discussed if he wasn't wearing short sleeves, had a heavy jacket on, or if I just decided, you know what, this threat is so serious that I need to deal with this on a higher level. Instead of this could easily be going across the eyes. And this is also an important learning point when it comes to MBC. You don't have to do an entire technique. As I said, if we cut these flexor tendons and that weapon goes clattering to the ground, legally I'm not cutting on him anymore. I'm not justified to. Well, the same thing when you look at simple technique. If we look at the idea of the angle one coming in and I cut and then rake across his eyes, at that point if he can't see, that may be my opportunity to escape. That simple, that motion, you may just extract that bit of it, and that's all you want. That's fine too. Again, we're giving you the full scope of what we present. You take from it what you feel is appropriate for your needs. So again, what we get is Crosata, cross, again, being very careful when you're going anywhere near the eyes, and then you finish it. So if we put that together, there's your Crosata for the angle one. Next up, we have the follow. This is also where we start getting into the idea of deconstructing technique. So Vince attacks, I simply evade, I see that reference point, now I cut and check. Step in, got this monitored here, step off to clear my leg, power that thrust, comma cut, and walk through with the mobility kill. So again, we evade, boom, follow, step in and check, and walk through. Put it together fluidly. And with the follow, one thing to bear in mind, that cut across the eyes, Vince throws the angle one, bang. Raking right across like that. That simple ability to evade and come back. When we learned the Largo Mano drill, we talked about Lastico, that rubber band movement. It's a perfect application of it right there. Okay? When we look at deconstructing, we talked about being able to take a technique and lower it to that least common denominator. When in doubt, lower your standards. We know the jam and the quad cut are really the most important things as far as creating that mobility kill. So if we lower our standards a peg more, he attacks, I evade, I step in and jam that arm. Create an opportunity here, step off, mobility kill, and walk that through. So again, okay? The nice thing about the jam, no matter where we're at in that process, whether I'm preemptive, whether I'm reactive, I've still got a large surface area and a very strong structure to work with there. Next one we're going to look at is the meat. So with the meat, what we've got is the angle one coming in, cut and check. We're staying on the inside here. Let's go ahead and do-si-do. Angle one comes in, cut and check. Again, I've created my plus sign here. Got a good structure. My shoulders are parallel to his forearm. From here, I thrust up into that armpit. For safety's sake, we typically go past it here. That's driven up into there. Now I push down, Crosata out through the bicep. Take the tricep, check, and then finish with the leg. Again, cut and check, armpit, lever down and cut through that. That also clears this for this follow-up cut. Of course, we could also go up to the eyes if we felt that was justified. Cut and check, make sure this doesn't come back, step off, and get that mobility kill. Put it together fluidly. So there's the meat. Next up, roof block. This is basically our opening Crosata. This is what we get out of the 6-count drill and also out of the Sobrata drill. So when the angle one comes in, I'm basically coming up wedging with the left arm here, cutting with this hand. So he attacks, I wedge, come down, and cut that bicep here. Now right from there, I can take that quad and go for that mobility kill. And notice that on this grip here, I'm also kind of throttling this. This is creating, just like Côte de Gaïche, outside wrist lock. If I've got the grip here, I can affect his balance. That also presents that quad, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to get. So we look at is cut, cut, thrust, and cut. We put that together. Okay, so that's basically our roof block, or that opening cruciata motion that, again, we pick up out of the 6-count drill and the sombrada drill. We also learned pas la suite. We took that out of our reverse grip skills, adapted that into standard grip. This can be either an initial motion, or we can stutter it by checking and then bringing this hand in. Either one is fine. So we look at it as that comes in. We'll do it first with the idea of simply passing. Again, I engage with the back of the arm, pass this through, lift the elbow, and go straight to the leg. If I want, I can come back and pick up that tricep, come back and make sure I've got that leg. We can also stutter it. Check, then pass. Leg, tricep, leg again. And that motion going from here to here, this can be repeated. Traditional Filipino martial arts, they would call that a rompita line. We call it lather, rinse, repeat. Doesn't matter. It's something that you can pick up. If you haven't taken them out of the fight, it easily flows back and allows you to repeat that mobility kill cut to the leg. Now, one thing we do with pas la suite that we haven't really shared with you yet is the idea of adding the armpit in there as a target. So when Vince attacks, whether I pick it up here or, again, stutter this, doesn't matter. Once I've gotten this to the point to where I can see his leg, I lift the elbow and I thrust straight to the armpit here. This is a great way to slow down this arm because I haven't really done anything other than impact it yet. That shot to the armpit is going to keep him entertained while I drop down and take that leg. Very quick, very deceptive, and very hard for him to see what's going on. Again, he attacks, pick this up, and this is right up into that armpit, and then dropping down to take that leg. One more time. And that thrust right up into the nerve cluster of the armpit, up into the axillary artery, typically will cause that arm to retract, takes it out of the fight, while you finish the fight with that mobility kill. Next up, we have hubud. Now, hubud is typically going to apply primarily when it's more of a vertical angle one, because again, we want to get to the outside here. A lot of people will say, well, what if it's more of a horizontal thing? Can I do hubud this way? You can, but you're working way too hard to do it. So what you look at is, if I want to get to the outside, if it's coming vertically, no problem, hubud works. If it's coming more horizontally, rather than lifting this up over my head, unless I happen to be a real short guy and it works well for me, typically pas la suite's going to work better and allow you to do it that way to where you're passing down instead of up over your head. But if we look at the hubud application, this is here. Right from here, we go to that pressure cut on the bicep. And you can see how that affects Vince. Using this as a strut, driving my body weight forward, cutting out here, come back, pick that up, and then take that quad for the mobility kill. So again, he attacks, bang, there's the cut, cut again, and you take the quad. Very quick, very easy to get right into that bicep, and then drive forward using the whole body motion, using the arm as a strut, transfer that body weight into that cut, and pin his arm against his body to cut really deeply. And finally, what we've got for angle one is de cuerdas, or the punch and cut type of thing. When we look at de cuerdas, again, what we're doing is basically backing the blade here, holding the hands together on center line. So when the angle one comes in, basically jamming the arm here, cut and check, suck this in tight, and then we work the leg. Again. Similar to that is the idea of the punch and cut. Fist is coming out for a shoulder stop. This hand is also checking. Again, grab the back of the elbow and suck that in. So he attacks. very similar. One of the tricks on this, you may say, well, if he's not swinging wide to where I have access to the inside of his arm here, how do I make this work? He's got good technique and it's hard to get inside. This is where a little bit of mobility helps. Simply stepping forward, typically a 30-degree angle this way, is going to put me on the inside of his arm. So he attacks, bang, I step in this way, suck this in tight, and control here. Again, the key on this, slowly, when I go to suck this in, my arm slides, grabs the back of his elbow, which limits his mobility to one joint, suck this right into the armpit here, and then think about bringing your elbow to your ribs, because what that's going to do is engage your lats, bring all the big muscles in. So instead of just trying to hold them with this, letting my elbow fly out, use the armpit to really hold that. Once you've cut this bicep, your training partner may say, well, I can still pull you around. Remind him that he doesn't have one of these, and then finish with that mobility kill. That's a review of everything we've got for Angle 1. It's a lot more stuff than the original 4 defensive responses, but it's all good stuff. It's all worth considering. What you choose to put into your skill set is up to you. As long as you have confidence in it, as long as you train it diligently, as long as you can make it work under stress, that's your choice. Make it work for you. Let's take a look at a comprehensive review of Angle 3. Yes, Angle 3. We started with Angle 1. Why are we going with Angle 3? Again, the methodology of building on what we already know, looking for commonality of technique. I think you can count to 5 pretty readily. If not, then you probably couldn't operate the DVD player that is playing this thing. So the idea that we're giving you a chain of information that is much more logical, much more solid, that's more important than following any numerical sequence. Again, the numbers are simply frames of reference. So if we go through the same order again, starting with the pass. So Eric attacks with Angle 3. I'm hollowing out, cutting with the same Angle 3. Once I see the back of his arm, I've got my reference. I'm chambered across body. I cut, check, and drive. Step off, comma cut that leg. It should all look very familiar to you because, again, that's the whole idea. So again, he throws that Angle 3. Boom, cut, check, step in, and work through this way. One more time fluidly. Next up would be the Cruzada. With the Cruzada, again, we're adding in the live hand. The idea is to amp up the power of that cut and also force that arm through so that it forces him to overextend, gives us a better opportunity to follow up with that second cut. So when he attacks, boom. Notice also what I did on that. I could go anywhere here, chose to go into this area here, cutting the base of the bicep, cutting that brachial artery, cutting that brachial nerve to take that arm out of the fight. That gives you a nice separation between the hands, makes it less likely that you might nick yourself. So again, he attacks, cut, cut, check, step off, and power through. And again, anytime I cut the tricep, I have the option of going to the eyes. If you're going to do that with your partner, wear good eye protection. Make sure you go slowly. Always emphasize safety. Next up is going to be the follow. Again, we're deconstructing technique. So the Angle 3 comes in, I hollow out, and now I'm simply coming in to pick up the back of that arm, essentially skipping a couple steps at the beginning and filling in the blanks. So he attacks, hollow, cut, check. And again, you can see how quickly that gets in, especially on the Angle 3. I can be in here following the back of that arm very quickly because all I have to do is draw my hips out and hollow out. Allows me to still maintain the ability to reach out and touch him with this knife. If we take that deconstruction process one more step, now we've got the jam. Looking to see that reference point of the back of his arm and simply keep it from coming back. So he attacks, I step in, and simply work it that way. Now one interesting thing, when you notice the drive here, again I'm driving 30 degrees here, you may say, well, what happens if this leg isn't available? What if you're bouncing him off balance or whatever? At that point I look at my other skills. Do I have to add in a low line kick? Do I cut the other leg? That's one of the things that you start to figure out in training with your partners. You start to up the intensity, you look at how those things happen. You look at different foot positions. mix it up, and you start to work through those things to figure out what works best for you. Again, just because you put a knife in your hand doesn't mean that you still can't kick, knee, stomp, and do all the other things that go along with it. Let's take a look at the meat for the angle 3. When the angle 3 comes in, we pivot. So I'm cutting and checking, come back with the angle 2. As I bring my palm to my chest to collect that arm, step in, thrust, and cut that leg. Let's go ahead and do-si-do. See it from this side. Initial motion, there's the meat. Again, this is what's blocking on the low line. This is cutting across the bicep. So it's all one turn of the body to plow across and then come right back. As I come back, this curls. I'm not so much concerned with trying to turn this into a chicken wing or anything like that. I want to bring my palm into my chest to be able to create good solid control over this. Again, in training, your partner may say, well, I can get out of this, that's not a strong lock. Just remind him he has no bicep, okay? That cut can be repeated also. Let him know that that's not there, and then step in and finish that. So one more time. Flows together very quickly, and you can see how the turn of the body, the turn back, the step and turn, using my hips and my shoulders to generate that power. Pala suit. This starts with the meat, and then we pass to get to the outside so we're not stuck on the inside. So we start here, pala suit this. As soon as this is passed, I'm checking this elbow here, and I'm right into that cut on the leg. I can just continue moving from there. So again, very quick to get in there. Like the angle 1, we can also embellish this and add that armpit shot. So now we cut here, pass this through, right up into the armpit, and then back down to cut that leg. One more time. You can see how that flows together very easily. That shot to the armpit, a lot of times what's interesting about that is I go here, if I actually get him stood up, sometimes I can actually get a twofer on those legs too, because his legs will come together because he's trying to fly to get away from the point of that knife. And finally we have de cuerdas, or the punch and cut. Again, here's our de cuerdas position. Punch and cut would have the hands separated. The basic mechanics are exactly the same. So the angle 3 comes in, de cuerdas, stopping it here. Cut as I suck this in tight, and then